If I tell you I'm going to the store and will be back in 5 minutes, you know exactly what I mean. But if I say there is an elephant in the room, well, I am making a completely impossible claim. There isn't actually a 3-ton animal looking for peanuts on the table. If language exists to transfer clear, precise information, we have to ask why we rely so heavily on statements that are physically impossible. These structural lies are deliberate. By ghosting right past the logical mind, they deliver a payload of meaning directly to our intuition. Pure logic simply lacks the vocabulary for what it actually feels like to be human. To communicate emotional reality, we have to invent scenarios that never happened. The philosopher William James spent a lot of time observing newborn infants to understand how we first process reality before our logic develops. He concluded that our foundational state is pure sensory input, a state he famously described as a buzzing and blooming confusion. Compared to those very first intense sights, sounds, and physical impacts, abstract concepts are incredibly pale. Try explaining the concept of anxiety to someone without referencing a tight chest or a heavy weight. Metaphors act as the bridge. They translate shapeless ideas into things we can actively see, hear, and taste. Without borrowing the physical weight of flowers, bees, or heavy stones, the human brain struggles to anchor complex truths. We require these sensory fictions to comprehend our own thoughts. Because metaphors rely on our senses, they trigger involuntary physical reactions. A phrase with hot chili peppers in it explodes in the mouth and the mind before you even have a chance to analyze the words. While these phrases belong to the realm of art rather than science, they still demand a strict internal precision to function properly. Take the idiom, "It's raining cats and dogs." We rarely stop to think about a raindrop the size of an actual animal. But the moment you do, you realize the dog in that equation has to be a small one. A beagle or a small dachshund works, but a golden retriever breaks the mental image entirely. You know exactly what it feels like to have a square wheel, but if someone says they are tired as a whale, the cognitive bypass fails. The image simply collapses. A working metaphor obeys the intuitive logic of our dreams. If it violates that internal rulebook, it doesn't enlighten the listener. It leaves them stranded in confusion. We often construct these images using comparative labels, like the words like or as, sweet as honey, strong as a tree. These are similes. A simile explicitly admits it is making a comparison. This forces your brain to remain in an analytical, thinking state. If you hear, "the world is like a stage," you examine both objects from a safe distance. But the moment you remove that comparative word, you create a true metaphor. All the world is a stage. You instantly shift from analyzing two separate concepts to feeling a single, unified reality. Metaphors are not just restricted to nouns. The poet Emily Dickinson proved that they can embed themselves directly into verbs, writing, "I saw no way, the heavens were stitched." By stripping away the warning labels of comparison, metaphors hack the brain. They force the imaginary to feel physically real and immediate. This mechanical trick serves a vital human purpose. It allows us to transfer complex experiences directly into another person's nervous system, building instant empathy. In his poem Mother to Son, Langston Hughes builds an entire psychological landscape by comparing a difficult life to a ruined house. The mother describes a path that hasn't been a crystal stair, but rather a floor covered in tacks, splinters, and torn-up boards. Those specific, sharp hazards encode abstract traumas, hunger, cold, and exhausting labor, into a physical pain the reader can feel in their own feet. The 18th century Japanese poet Issa used the exact same architecture. By describing a cricket singing on a branch floating downriver, he created a perfectly contained sensory portrait of human mortality and passing time. These images are not puzzles meant to be decoded. They are immersive simulations that force the listener to physically inhabit another person's reality. They also stretch beyond human emotion to reshape how we view our physical environment. Consider how Carl Sandburg described the weather coming into Chicago. The fog comes on little cat feet. Mapping the silent intent of an animal onto a weather event changes the harbor. Instead of a formless mist, you see a gray shape sitting on silent haunches. Jane Hirschfield describes these metaphors as handles on a door. Each handle leads into a new house, and a world that only that specific handle can reveal. By making the handle, you can make a world.